Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box News Bites. I'm Sandy. CERB, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the shining example of how to support a population our American neighbors like to point at. Even many in Canada think it was great, and for many it was beneficial. And if it was what the government pretended it to be, it would have been great for everyone. But under the surface, CERB was a lie, and for some people, this will lead to more harm than good. Canadians did not receive $2,000 a month. This whole situation got me extremely mad for reasons I'll get into. I'm trying my best not to curse in my videos and keep the language clean. But this subject, what the government has done, I need to vent. So to do both, I will replace all the curse words in this video with the word CERB. So please hit that CERBing like and subscribe button for CERB's sake. Twitter, it's a 24/7 CERB show, and I love singing in the rain. Follow me there. I have a Patreon page no one seems to notice, so all of you can have a pleasant day. I know times are tough. Help out only if you can. The basics of the response benefit are, it started on March 15th and went to September 26th. That is 7 4-week periods. The irony of it being 28 weeks in a movie called 28 Weeks Later about a deadly virus that got out of hand isn't lost on me. For every 4-week period, Canadians could call a number and get the $2,000 benefit, no questions asked. After it ended in September, it was transitioned to enhanced employment insurance called the Canada Recovery Benefit, CERB. Seems pretty straightforward. Now let's get into how this has served people over. Many people in Canada did not qualify for this benefit, and most of those people are suffering with poverty. The relief benefits were means tested, and it was up to the individual to figure out if they qualified. You needed to be a Canadian resident over 15 who has been forced to stop working because of the pandemic. You must have also earned a minimum of $5,000 over the previous 12 months and was expected to make less than $1,000 a month while collecting the benefit. So if you are a foreign worker or undocumented, you got no help. Since you need a Canadian address, if you are houseless but working, you got no help. If you lost your job before the pandemic, you got no help. The likelihood of finding another job during the pandemic is slim, given how many companies had to shut down or cut back. If your employment insurance runs out during that time, you're CERB out of luck. Students were originally left out, but eventually got their own version of the benefit. If you are a senior or on disability, you don't qualify. The justification? The government says we've been managing as is and nothing has really changed for us, so we don't deserve anything more. No! We haven't been managing. We CERBing haven't, you arrogant CERB holes. I began doing research on what an individual receives on disability versus what the average cost of a one-bedroom apartment is across the country. As I chipped away at it, a dam burst. I have so much information I need to further study and so much more that needs to be taken into consideration. I'll put all of it in a separate video so I can give it the attention it deserves. The short of it is, most people's entire disability payment is less than market rent no matter where they live in the country. And our expenses have changed. If you're a senior, you're at higher risk of dying if you catch COVID, and many people on disability have compromised immune systems and can't afford masks and sanitizers. Which means they can't go to a store, they can't go to the food bank, they can't go to the soup kitchen to get the food they rely on, and many of these places have been closed for periods due to high risk of spreading or outbreaks, which means more money has to be spent on groceries, deliveries, or taxis because they don't want to take a chance on a crowded bus. And we have no extra money to begin with. We are forced to live in dire poverty. When the federal government determined that $2,000 was the bare minimum to keep afloat, each and every single person on any kind of government assistance felt the slap across the face. We get around half of what that benefit was and are expected to not only live off that, but be grateful we get anything. Depending on your province, people on disability were topped up by $100 here and there, but nothing consistent and nothing that would bring us close to $2,000. The governments don't care about us. I'm sure there are other groups of people I have missed who don't qualify for the benefit. When I started digging into this, I found there was so much nuance and confusion, I could make an hour-long video and still miss important information about this subject. Okay, now on to how the government's rollout of this has hurt people. They were in such a rush to get the benefit out, there was confusion as to who qualified. And even though the benefit was means tested, these means weren't tested before they gave out the money to the people who applied. There was a tiny percentage of people who knew they didn't qualify and wanted to take advantage of the benefit when they didn't need it. But there were also people who took it when they knew they didn't qualify for it because they are in such desperate situations now, they don't have the luxury to worry about future consequences. If the government did their CERBing job looking after vulnerable people, no one would be taking it out of desperation. Then there are people who took the benefit in good faith, not understanding they didn't qualify. The $5,000 income requirement was net, not gross, which early on was not stated anywhere, and the government admitted this was a mistake on their part. Many people made over $5,000, but after deductions fell under that amount. Even if they knew it was net, some people don't realize certain expenses are applied towards deductions, and other people don't realize certain revenue flows they receive aren't considered income. Why don't they know these things? Because we aren't all tax accountants and most of us don't do our own taxes, so we don't understand the fine details. My mom is one. This is how I know. In December, over 440,000 letters were sent to people from the Canada Revenue Agency, the CRA, saying they must pay back the full $14,000 they received and pressured people to do it before the end of the year so there are no negative repercussions on their taxes. This affects mostly low-income, self-employed people, and like most people in their situation, they spent the money on necessities like food, rent, or keeping their businesses from collapsing. This will put them in debt for years if it's not forgiven. So far, the government says it won't pardon people for the mistake the CRA made, and the only lenience is that they won't charge interest. For now. A class action lawsuit is in the works to stop the CRA from forcing people to repay their benefits. The Canada Emergency Student Benefit, CESB, ran between May and August. The amount was $1,250 per 4-week period, because apparently students don't have the same expenses as people with incomes. Since the benefits started later, some students who had jobs pre-pandemic had already applied for the $2,000 benefit and received it. For one University of Ottawa student, Alex, with a last name I won't pretend I have the slightest chance of pronouncing correctly, was left with a huge bill to pay back. He lost his part-time jobs and summer co-op position due to the pandemic. Between his jobs, student loans, and bursaries, he made over the $5,000 income required. However, the loans and bursaries shouldn't have been counted towards income. When the CESB started, he checked with the CRA to see if he should switch and was told to stick with the $2,000 benefit as it was the better option. He received a letter saying he has to pay back $12,000, and when he called the CRA about it, they told him he should have switched to the CESB. He asked if he could just pay back the difference between the two programs, and they told him to CERB off. And if you were on disability and received the benefit, you were doubly CERBed over. Some people on disability maintained jobs and lost them because of the pandemic. So they applied and got the $2,000. But the issue with that is when you are on government assistance and then receive money from a different government program, the first one will deduct dollar for dollar, Most people did not know this and assumed it would be deducted similarly to their regular income. If they spent most of the $2,000 when they got it, they were left without enough money to pay rent. Because disability is operated by the provinces you live in, how the deductions are handled or any lenience will depend on the province. One woman on disability, Dory Arnold, a name I can fully pronounce, was incorrectly informed by an acquaintance the government was providing support to people during the pandemic, and all she had to do was call to collect the money. She took it on good faith, and since there was no means testing done over the phone, the money was automatically given to her, so she had no reason to believe she didn't qualify. Dory's only mistake was believing the government cared about supporting the entire population during unprecedented times. She used the money to improve her living situation. Since the $2,000 is far greater than what people collect on disability, it means that even if you collect it for 1 month, you will go a couple months without any income. The disability benefits Dory relied on to pay rent didn't show up. She was evicted and is now homeless. This is what happens when the biggest message pushed out by the media is that Canadians were getting $2,000 a month to help people through the pandemic, when they should have been adding, only if the government thinks you're deserving. The next part is extremely important for anyone who collected the benefit. The reason I say no Canadians received $2,000 is because the benefit was a taxable income, which means it was up to the individual to put aside money each month, but most people don't know this. Again, people's biggest mistake is thinking the government cares. Why would the government give you money only to then take part of it away later? If you know anyone who has taken the benefit, do not assume they know. Tell them it's taxable. If they only watch the evening news or listen to the headlines on their morning radio programs, they won't know because it wasn't clearly stated. You have to read into the news, look up information, and go to reliable sources, and most people don't have the time or inclination to do so. They also have no reason to believe they should be researching the benefit. They trust the government. Depending on their tax bracket, they will get a major shock come tax season. And finally, the benefit was switched to the CERB in September. Right after that, COVID cases started to spike. Part of it could be due with kids going back to school and the temperatures getting colder, so more people staying indoors when meeting. But part of it could very well be due to the people who were forced to go back to work. The CERB is enhanced employment insurance. Not everyone qualifies for it, and the payments depend on what you've paid into the system, so it could be a lot less than the $500 per week you were receiving on the former benefit. Which means you are forced to work if you don't feel safe. It also takes longer for you to collect the money. But your rent is still due on the 1st. The forms you have to fill out are complicated, and they are not automatically renewed. So every 2 weeks, you need to update your file. If you forget, it will delay payments. If you make an honest mistake when filling out the forms, there is little forgiveness and it can take weeks to correct the information. On the surface, the CERB looks like it covers most people, more so than regular EI because you can apply for a 2-week sick leave if you have to quarantine. And again, there is a delay in payments. If you need the money during your quarantine, tough CERB for you. My biggest concern is the overuse of the word reasonable in the forms. You didn't turn down reasonable work during the time you were applying for. You did not quit or reduce your hours voluntarily unless it was reasonable for you to do so. Who gets to determine what reasonable is? And without it spelt out, what is preventing the definition of reasonable from changing when it's convenient for the government, much like with the net versus gross mistake? To sum all of this up, there was confusion between different benefit programs and a requirement of being a tax accountant to understand the details. Yes, the benefit helped a lot of people through the pandemic. Over 7 million people received the benefit, and for that, I am grateful. But many people didn't get it, either because they didn't need it or didn't qualify. A lot of suffering could have been prevented by having people means tested before receiving the money, or better yet, no means testing and simply sent the money to all adults. And if the government clearly stated to everyone at the beginning that it was taxable, or better yet, not taxing it. Low-income people and people on disabilities were not helped, and in some instances harmed by this. This has put on display how Canada has different tiers of citizens and how the government feels only select people are deserving of support. At the bare minimum, the government should forgive people who made honest mistakes and provide everyone with an income that can afford them to live and thrive. Yeah, I'm talking about some sort of universal basic income. I'll be making more videos about this. There are vibes the Liberals may call for a spring election, right after tax season when people realize how much they were CERB'd over. So to Justin Trudeau, I know I've been harsh on you and have called you bad names in the past. In my defense, you deserve them. But please, don't use the pandemic and people's suffering and desperation as election ploys. Our lives aren't pawns in your game, and you can fix this now. If you do, I'll consider not thinking of you as a piece of CERB. Jagmeet Singh, you are an inspiration, and I have no doubt you have the potential to be the leader Canada needs. But if an election is called soon and you can't take advantage of the CERBing mess the Liberals made and lead the NDP to victory, you need to examine your role in the party and possibly make room for someone who can. You need to make sure people know the only reason we got the supports we did was because of pressure from the NDP. If it had been left up to the Liberals to do what was right, we'd be looking at something similar to the CERB show in the States. Let people know that if you had full control over policy, the supports would have been stronger and included everyone. We need bold, progressive changes now. Our lives depend on it. I've seen you call out racist leaders and speak against policies that don't help or don't go far enough. Don't back down during the election. If you need help cussing out the other parties, I'm here for it. And I won't be using the word CERB. No matter who you are deserving of support. Your life matters, and you have something beautiful to offer this world. We need to vote in a government that feels the same. Get informed, get involved. And to all the politicians who don't give a CERB about us, you can go CERB yourselves, you selfish piles of moose CERB. Do your CERBing jobs or quit, you CERBers. What's your CERB story? Let me know in the comments section below. Please like and share this video. Every little bit helps this channel to grow. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your next CERB is better than your last.